Hey everybody, my name's Ed. Okay, so we're gonna do another mini series review. So this is going to be Death: The High Cost of Living by Neil Gaiman and Chris Bachalo and Mark Buckingham. So I've got the individual issues here, but it's been reprinted a few times in trade paperback and whatnot. And so this is from 1993. It was a 3-issue mini series that was a spinoff from the then popular Sandman series from DC's Vertigo line. Vertigo was DC's line of mature comics that revamped some of DC's more obscure characters, also included some creator-owned characters. Most of the comics were fantasy, horror, and postmodern superheroes. The line soon expanded to cover genres like sci-fi and crime and satire. Sandman was the fantasy title starring Dream/Morpheus as the Lord of Dreams, and the Sandman title was written by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by various artists throughout its run. And Death was his sister with, of course, the Spirit of Death. So, like I said, I've got the mini series here. So this is issue 1, issue 2. Issue 2, and then issue 3. Okay. All right. So, just to get into the premise, basically, Death is let's do it this way. So, once a century, the spirit of death must take on a human form for one day in order to retain her touch with humanity. So, a young woman named Dee Dee meets this young man named Sexton who was feeling suicidal. Dee Dee more or less talks him out of it while revealing that she is, in fact, the spirit of death. Sexton doesn't believe her, and he thinks that she's probably crazy. He and Dee Dee are confronted by an old Cockney woman named Mad Hattie, who claims to be 250 years old and coerces them into finding her missing heart. They agree and travel to New York City for the day and meet a variety of interesting characters along the way. Meanwhile, they are being stalked by a mysterious man calling himself Eremite, who seems to know that Dee Dee is death and wants to apprehend her for his own purposes. So Dee Dee is written in this way where she's kind of this funny, quirky, attractive, level-headed, and somewhat wise young lady. And even though the term manic pixie dream girl wasn't used much back then, the trope kind of existed in media, and she sort of fits that archetype. However, I add she transcends it by being, an interesting character in her own right with her own ambitions and motivations, and not just, the plot device for, the young man here. Sexton starts off as a sad young man. He's self-pitying and cynical, but it's done in such a way where he still feels like a likable character and the reader's able to identify with him. And I'd say throughout the story, he does begin to see beyond himself and grow as a person. And Dee Dee and Sexton have a decent chemistry and play off each other really well, and they interact with other characters in fun ways. And they have kind of fun and witty dialogue and banter while expressing some interesting philosophical points as well. So the plot is a little bit thin, but it doesn't matter. All the elements, like I said, are set up for what could have been like a just straightforward fantasy occult story. But what Neil Gaiman actually gives us is a character study that ends up ultimately as a kind of life-affirming quasi-coming-of-age story. The comic is full of warm, engaging characters and intriguing dialogue, and explores various aspects of contemporary life in a way that I'd say young adults at the time could relate to. So most of the comic, like I said, is quiet, although it does have some moments of suspense. It does drop hints of dread, but like I said, it's almost a slice of life story, although set in the fantasy occult world. So Gaiman's tale here is it walks a interesting fine line between, like I said, the fantastic and the plausible. And let's see here. Oh, and I should mention this: despite various characters relating stories that touch on subjects like suicide, divorce, sexual abuse, car accidents, etc., and there is some on-panel violence. The story's dark and moody, but it's still a more lighthearted story. So the art by Chris Bachalo and Mark Buckingham complements Gaiman's story quite well. Their figures and faces are slightly cartoony and exaggerated, but at the same time, the art is heavily rendered with deep shadows and effective cross-hatching. The pages have an interesting use of straightforward layouts and time-breaking panels, which creates a smooth storytelling pace and a story, in a story that doesn't have too much, explicit action. However, it does convey a sense of time passing and the plot moving forward, and it succeeds in being compelling in a visual sense. So, Bachalo and Buckingham give lots of nice detail work throughout, and their deep backgrounds give the comic a real sense of the kind of big city setting. So, just to give you a little taste of the art here. So let's do it this way. So, okay, yep. Shock over the edge with Vertigo. Okay. All right, and this is all kind of dark and moody. Here's the Mad Hattie doing her thing. Then, here we meet Sexton, kind of moping around. Right, and like I said, pretty straightforward layouts. That's what I meant to say. All right. Here at the junkyard. Here we meet Dee Dee for the first time. Okay. They're just random neighborhood people. They're just kind of walking around doing their thing. So kind of, like I said, fun and light and everything. And blah, blah, blah. Okay, without giving too much away there. Like I said, lots of good work with, shadows, backgrounds, a lot of detail here. But all the rendering and whatnot, it doesn't really overpower or might. Doesn't really overpower the drawings, the illustrations. That's what I meant to say. All right, and let's see here. Oops, maybe that's a little bit too much there. Okay, all right, and I don't want to give too much away there, so we'll just stop right there. Okay then, all right, so just to wrap it up, Death, the High Cost of Living by Neil Gaiman and Chris Bachalo and Mark Buckingham. It is a pretty much one of the better standout miniseries from DC's Comics Vertigo line from the early 90s. There's great scripting from Gaiman. It combines nice character work and humor along with dealing with provocative subject matter with nice art from Bachalo and Buckingham. The comic is offbeat but humorous, and while touching on dark subjects, remains ultimately life-affirming. Okay, so then that's it. I've got to thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and you have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.